Right now, work feels pretty unstable. There are layoffs, AI hiring freezes, people sending out hundreds of applications and hearing nothing back.
Entry-level jobs are vanishing at an alarming rate. Perfect storm of AI, political instability, and economic uncertainty are causing what some are calling the job apocalypse.
From speaking to businesses, I believe that they are struggling with the signal v noise. AI applications, quick applies, that is causing issues for brands when trying to recruit because they are inundated with CVs and trying to get clarity on what a good candidate looks like now is really challenging for them.
Hi guys, my name is Nadia Burka. The Future Skills podcast is here for you today, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to our guest, no other than Kate O'Shea. Today we're going to be discussing the hiring market. We are seeing AI-generated CVs, EasyApply culture, and a huge increase in application volume, but not necessarily an increase in clarity. In fact, for many businesses, hiring has become harder, not easier. That's more visibility, more candidates, more data, but less signal, less trust, and often less confidence in decision-making. To unpack this, I'm joined by Kate O'Shea, founder of Keo Digital, a recruitment business specializing in senior performance marketing, growth, CRM, and digital leadership hires across London. With nearly 2 decades of experience in digital recruitment, Kate has built a reputation for being deeply consultative, honest, and focused on long-term fit rather than transactional placements. Kate, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Nadia.
It's been a bit of a longer introduction, right? But it's something that is worth putting on out there because the topic of today is not going to be necessarily something light. We've discussed it a little bit earlier, but it's something that is absolutely needed. Millions are currently needing to get more of a clarity into the subject, right? So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's go.
Excellent. We have, Kate, a bit more of a traditional question on the podcast, something that we usually start off with any given guest on the show because we want to know them more from the perspective of them, not necessarily being them behind a title, behind their achievements, which they all have plenty of, but it's more to do with their personality that we want to know more of. So how would you describe yourself in 3 words of your choice, please?
Honest, intuitive, observant.
Absolutely. And within a hiring business, you kind of have to be. You have to read the signals, don't you, with regards to the candidates and how they would be then matched to the businesses that you're talking to. Yeah. So with regards to that, if you were to describe the way that you approach hiring, again, within the 3 words of your choice, what would that be?
Okay. Trust, alignment, clarity. Yeah.
I love that we're putting out forward the word clarity, isn't it? Because it feels that this market in these days seems to be lacking more of.
Yeah, exactly.
So clarity is definitely an aspect that we're going to touch base a little bit more today. It's something that lacks a lot in the current environment. So we're seeing more applications than ever these days. But my question is here, are we actually seeing better candidates, do you think?
I think what we're seeing is better polished candidates. That might be through AI polished CVs or just people being able to, improve the presentation skills, perhaps using AI technology. So I think we've not just suddenly come across better candidates. The industry's not changed in that way, but it's allowed individuals to improve CV and the way that they present themselves.
It's quite an ample topic, this one, isn't it? With regards to AI helping us polish the CVs, helping as well, on the other hand side, the actual recruitment market to be able to sift through those CVs. The other question there would be, what would that process look like? Because I don't think that candidates are well aware what happens after they send their CV, right, with regards to the filtering process. Do you think it's massively changed?
From speaking to businesses, I believe that they are struggling with the signal v noise. That's the issue at the moment, is the AI applications, quick applies, that is causing issues for brands when trying to recruit because they are inundated with CVs and trying to get clarity on what a good candidate looks like now is really challenging for them.
See, that's the point that you're currently making regarding the noise versus the actual clarity and the signals that come into play. I'm wondering if there is an element here whereby we could unpack a little bit more this volume segment and see how has that evolved over time and to which extent has AI helped or maybe rather hardened the job of the employers who need to get through better quality candidates.
I think it has made the job harder. Absolutely. And again, going back to that volume, I would say what's also impacted that is many businesses making redundancies, more individuals on the market who essentially have bills to pay, mortgages to pay. And so they are applying for 50, 60, 70, 80 jobs. And not all of them will be a strong match for them. So we have to look at both sides of the fence, why these individuals are applying to roles that perhaps aren't very suitable, but then how the businesses are then trying to screen those individuals. And it's difficult for me to comment on what those internal brands are doing, how they are screening it. It is slightly worrying because I know that there is so many individuals on the market with an extremely strong background, but are just not getting replies. And it feels like the term black hole has been used many, many times over the past 12 months. Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack that term. Actually, I find it fascinating that we're now discussing about terms such as that, because you've mentioned just now that a lot of candidates are feeling probably the panic, right, in terms of applying to so many other jobs that they might not necessarily be relevant for through their background, and yet they have to apply. They make their jobs feel suitable for the role through the aid of AI, but at the same time, that makes the job of the employers on the other side very hard. So from your perspective, how do you feel with regards to that filtering and helping the employers avoid that pack of panic? What could they do to improve their filtering process better so that they wouldn't get as many irrelevant CVs coming through?
Clarity on the role would be one. Would probably be the overriding feedback on that, because I'm finding that from my experience of working with businesses, it's their lack of clarity when writing that job description that puts so much ambiguity around the actual job. So many people will apply thinking, okay, am I right for this position? And this has gone on way before AI, but I think the expectations within businesses have become far greater than what they were as well. So you have asking for commercial leadership, talk to board members, and then have, strong data fluency with different platforms, Google AdWords, DV360, for example. So it's this spread and long wish list of expectations that it's also making it challenging for individuals to know, am I right for this role? It would be nice to see some sort of weighting system perhaps on a JD, a job description, so somebody can actually decipher what the business is looking for rather than it being a long list of expectations.
Great point you're making. Thank you so much for this. The next question I'm going to ask you, which is not on here, but it's something that you're inspiring me to ask, is this particular guidance that you're saying that would be nice to have this weighting system in place. Most recently, I noticed some of my other colleagues are reporting that on LinkedIn, there's now a function that tells you, you can utilize AI to tell you how suitable you are for a given role. How would you qualify it? How useful is that? Because on one hand, AI is helping you do that CV, right? On the other hand side, it's also helping you see how relevant you are for this other role. So it seems like, is there a connection or a disjoint?
It's a good question. And obviously I've not applied to roles, so it's difficult for me to comment truly on how that works. But, AI is a very good function to use for, tailoring your CVs. I personally don't think I would rely on it to tell me whether this job feels right, because it's a very simplistic way of understanding. And actually, there are so many more factors that go into understanding whether this job is right. It's culture, if we talk about location or, the ethos, morally, how does it feel? There are so many different. So AI just sort of scratches the surface when it comes to that. It's going to scrape a load of keywords against your CV and against the job description, and that's really not going to give you the true picture. For me, it just comes down to conversations. You have to talk to a business. You have to talk to people to understand whether there's a fit there. I did see an outstanding job description a few days ago. And it talked around the growth levers, what we're trying to do as an organization, what they were trying to do. And that really spoke to people so they could understand, well, yes, okay, I do have this channel experience within digital performance, but actually, what are we trying to get to? What's the growth levers? Like it was just exceptional. And I don't see many of those at all.
How interesting. It would be nice to get a little bit under the hood of that, because it sounds like it's more of a best practice that you're describing, right?
Yeah.
With regards to that, do you often help companies put their JD together in such a way that it's intelligible, clear, and will help them to avoid that panic application form?
Yeah, this is it. The way that I've developed my proposition, certainly in the last 12 to 18 months, is supporting businesses before they've gone out to market. So actually understanding what the business looks like today, where they're looking to get to, and then we sort of work backwards from that. Okay, well, you could find a skill set with XYZ, but you're going to have to pay this much for it. So it's helping those businesses define the roles from a commercial standpoint, as well as what actual skills can they expect to find in the market. And I think businesses that I'm seeing that are doing well are slowing down on the job hiring front before speeding up.
Right.
Okay. And I go back to this word clarity again. They really understand what it is they're looking to achieve with this particular individual, and they're clear on it. And then they go out to market. So that for me is the fundamental aspect of clarity around the job description, which then helps an individual to form an informed decision of whether they need to apply for this role.
I suppose I'm going to come up with an analogy here. It's like building a house. You have to have a good foundation first, right? Then have the walls done. But without that foundation, the walls will probably be a little bit shifty, right? In the wind. So definitely makes sense. In terms of, we've just touched base on the fact that a lot of candidates are coming up with the help of AI as very qualified on the paper. Now, what do you think would describe or help describe a very strong candidate? Is it something that you're seeing straight on the CV in particular, or there are other signals that you would look at?
So for me, when I'm reviewing a CV, for me, I've been doing this for nearly 2 decades, as you say. So you very quickly learn your pattern recognition, and I can spot a strong CV versus perhaps one that doesn't read so well. And I would say, if I was going to give you a couple of points on that,
please.
What I'm looking for is explicit mentioning of the growth that they personally have initiated. Okay, data, always speaks very loud on CVs, but that data might not have been them personally that had the responsibility of increasing that CAC or revenue or whatever it might be. So what I'm personally looking for is actually specific examples of the initiatives that they've developed that has had significant commercial impacts on the business. And then following on from that, I believe when I speak to a strong senior individual, majority of them normally come across quite clear, calm, concise. They're able to, again, give very solid examples of the improvement they've made for that brand. I'm not interested in necessarily what sexy brand you've worked for. It's more about the impact that you've had within that organization. And just to follow on from that, what I'm seeing at the moment in the market is businesses, if they are looking to go from 50 to 150 million, they need to have had somebody that can demonstrate that they've been there and done that already. So if you come in from a corporate enterprise organization, perhaps you've not understood or had the experience of working in a fast scale-up business and the nuances and challenges that comes with that. So job descriptions are becoming wider, but actually what the businesses are looking for are actually very more specific. So again, it comes back to this clarity. Like if you're clear with what you're looking for when you go out to market, that supports the whole process. Yeah.
So it sounds like whenever, let's say, a business would come to you with a JD that they've prepared for, and then you would go through, similar to your technique of overlooking a CV, you would then take a look into a JD and say, okay, this is probably a bit too much. This you can take out. This you can focus on, and that would make it a match. Yeah,
very much so. It's a case of sitting down with the business, understanding what they're trying to achieve by this particular hire, and then we work back from that. It's not just a list of, we could ask them to do this and this and this and this and this.
Hopefully not.
A lot of them look like that. And that's the issue at the moment as well. Like, as I mentioned, somebody who's able to dive into campaigns and then talk to board members and help with a new funding round. That's a really challenging brief. So yeah, what I try to do is sit down with the organisation, look at other briefs that I've had that are similar, other organisations that have been in this position already, look at how we tailored that job description. And there are so many other things, as I say, that go into it, right? Culture and making sure that the person understands the environment as well as just the sort of responsibilities. And I think these senior individuals are less task driven. They're more businesses are looking for that commercial leadership,
right?
And they're able to demonstrate again where they've had that impact on the business, on the bottom line.
Got you.
Yeah,
that really helps, because as you said yourself, there is this element of the overflooding of those job descriptions with similarly wanting to have it all. So is that tendency towards more for less as opposed to literally focus on some clarity, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I know that you've pretty much answered on my earlier questions, but there is one that I'm quite interested in as a follow-up from what we've discussed, and namely AI is quietly seeming to be raising the bar here, where senior candidates are now expected to not only manage the role strategically, but also execute it operationally. You've just mentioned that element of campaign setup and then also speaking to the board, right? So it feels like senior roles are being asked to do more than ever. So what do you think this might do to performance over time?
So I think it feels like slightly worrying in terms of where the digital careers are going, because the expectations are becoming so far beyond what they were.
Muddy, in my word.
And I think that's going to have an impact on people and how that they can show up for not just their businesses, but for their families, and just generally in life. I think that it's going to have an impact on it. So yes, AI is, on every job description now, and you have to be literate and you have to show examples of, how you've used that. So yeah, I think it's the expectations for somebody at that level to be strategic, but then to be able to work at that more granular level has been impacted by AI for sure. Yeah.
Your experience over the past 20 years, right, has been primarily within the tech, digital marketing sector, e-commerce by that matter, and probably SaaS as well as part of it all. Are you seeing currently, as part of the desires, the wish list coming from the companies, not only this element of being literate with AI, but also being known to apply AI for a given new coming project, or let's say a candidate that can demonstrate that they've created an app from scratch or some form of an application of AI in a bit more sophisticated way, and that would have come up out of their own initiative? Do you think that would put a little bit more of a wish list on their JDs more and incline it toward that level of quality of candidates? Or we're having this AI need and literacy being a little bit more broad in that sense?
Yeah, I think the level that I operate at now with these senior levels, any mention of AI is going to pique a business's interest. Okay, if depending on where they are in their maturity as far as AI is concerned. At the junior level, it's hard to comment on that. Obviously, I'm sure there are lots of people out there toying around with different apps and vibe coding and getting involved with it all. So yeah, I think generally speaking, there would be an appetite for that, but I don't necessarily think it would disqualify you as an individual.
That's good to hear.
If you didn't have that. I think it would be more about how you've used it practically within your current role, so you can apply that sort of technique to the next position.
So it's more, I suppose, with regards to the same old traits, such as show me where you've been good with your optimization skills or with your scaling up skills, right?
Yeah.
And if that would help put an example forward with AI being part of the mix, then that would potentially help them understand that you are literate in that regard, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, with regards to that trend of redundancies, the team's restructure, let's dive in a little bit into that, because if we're currently so far have been discussing the impact of AI on any given candidate, now we'll take a little bit more of a wider look into that and rather discuss the team impact. What I mean by that is the next question is around that, the team restructure and redundancies. We're hearing a lot about that in particular as a trend. Now, is this primarily about businesses cutting costs, do you think? Or are we seeing a deeper shift in how teams are being designed and scaled? Because here my follow-up question is, are companies becoming more intentional as to how they build their teams, or just more cautious?
I think both. Absolutely both. What happens with that is decision fatigue, which I'm seeing a lot
Right.
of. Yeah. So yes, they are becoming more intentional because they're trying to recalibrate what the organization needs to look like, bearing in mind with AI. What skills do we need? Where can we outsource it? Do we need somebody that can be operating AI, within the position, or actually can we ask somebody more junior to do that? So I think it's a case of businesses trying to understand what the organizational business needs to look like. I think that they're struggling to understand what type of people they need, not just for today, but in 2 years and in 4 years and in 6 years' time. So
That's a fair comment, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly that, because from what we're currently discussing, it does sound that not only is there not necessarily full clarity in the mix, but it's also the fact that they might feel a little bit not ready to react to the trends of how AI is impacting everybody's roles at the minute, right?
AI is moving quicker than businesses are.
Absolutely. And the decision making that you were saying earlier.
Yeah. And that decision fatigue that I mentioned, that's reducing, the sort of the sales cycles within recruitment. If we look at a 12-month period, there's going to be a reduction in hires made because the sales cycles are taking so much longer. I'm hearing of businesses doing 5, 6, 7 interviews. Once upon a time, that was only Google that did that.
Yes,
and it's not anymore.
They were known for doing that long as an interview process.
It was very well known, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that is just, I wouldn't say run of the mill, because there are pockets of businesses that are able to make those concise decisions. But yeah, it's becoming, and that's really challenging for people to have to go through that.
Absolutely.
To have to go through it and then not to secure the role as well. It's very, very disheartening. And I think that's having an impact on people's mental health as well.
Absolutely. There's another signal that I'm hearing through as well as part of the industry. In particular, there's this company that also were part of the podcast some time ago, Tech Talk. Absolutely loved the insights that they were coming through as well from the recruitment part. So what they do is they primarily consult the candidates on one hand side rather than businesses with regards to how to respond to the trends in the market. And so one of the insights that they have come up with was that currently there is this trend towards the fact that the candidates are saying that the businesses, because of the choices in the market, they've got so many at the minute to sift through, they don't feel the obligation nor that there is a particular reaction to go back to them if they have not secured the role, or say, for instance, to react in a sort of encouraging manner to say, oh, you have not secured this particular role, but you were absolutely gorgeous in one X. So the feedback process has been altered significantly.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a topic I've posted about many, many times because I am hearing people on the ground on a weekly basis telling me that they have been through interview processes, presented tasks, big commercially led, tasks where they're coming up with 3, 6 month strategies to help the business succeed, and then having no response. That's very, very disappointing.
Yeah.
And I talk about businesses. It's people that are doing this. There are people within those organizations that are behaving in this way.
Yeah.
So we can't just brand it as a business, because there are people that are running this business. So there's some really bad behaviors, I think, at the moment in the industry.
I'm glad you've described it that way, because again, what I'm hearing, the signals that I'm reading through in the industry as well, through posts and some other insights, is that that's becoming a technique that the candidates are starting to distrust a bit more, because when you're asking a candidate through a presentation, be it at the final stage of your interview, to come up with a 30 to 90 days plan, and that is a lot of research that goes into any given time of the candidate, and then they're sharing all these insights pretty much for free with the other party, and the other party is taking the benefit of that for their own ideas making and their own sourcing of like great geniuses that they can then put in practice at no cost.
Yeah. And then quite often they'll pull the role and the role will disappear off the market. So you have got to wonder.
How honest is that?
You have got to wonder how that's working at the other end. But again, that comes back to, you see these briefs go live, people interview, the business realizes, do we need this? Do we need that? They're unsure on it, they pull it back and the role disappears. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So again, it just comes
Unethical,
back
isn't
to
it?
it's unethical. And I think it's due to, again, the businesses just not really getting clarity on what they need for the business, and that comes right from the top.
Feels that, again, please let me know how you feel about this sort of conclusion that I'm making as part of it, but it does feel a sense of a panic that's coming through, and not just through the candidate's angle, but also through from the business angle, because of them not knowing how to position themselves, how to position their JDs, and what exactly do they want from the candidate to do to help their businesses.
Well, yeah, because they've potentially got shareholders or investors breathing down their neck saying, okay, we need the results. And they go, we need somebody that's going to help us with growth and everything that encompasses growth, rather than really sitting down and understanding where they see that growth coming from, because that's when you can go out to market with a really definitive decision on what it is that you need. And we, without going into too much detail around the specific channels and the, digital performance, because I want to keep this quite broad for anybody that doesn't understand that particular industry. But, it is really understanding what those growth levers are going to look like. A lot of people have said on posts that I've put is growth is something you're trying to achieve. It's not a channel that you use, to try and achieve what they're trying to do. So again, just goes back once again to businesses panicking because, they've maybe had a great year and want to continue on that, or they've got the shareholders that are asking for results, and they think, right, well, we can get somebody that can do everything. We'll just get somebody who can do it all for us, and that there are people out there that can, manage on a more granular level and, talk to board. But I think businesses are unaware of actually how rare that is and how that really minimizes the talent pool for them.
Yes, it comes down to knowing exactly that, prioritizing your needs before you even go to market, isn't it? Yeah. That's golden. Thank you so much. So we've discussed the happenings on the market from the business's perspective. It would be good to then dive in from the talent's perspective, and that's my next question. So for candidates impacted by, the restructures, the shifts from within, that's what's happening in the given organization, that panic that we've just touched based on, do you think they should be focusing on building the new skills or rethinking how they present their existing experience? And more broadly, how candidates maintain relevance and stay in demand in a market that's shifting so very quickly?
Yeah. So there's a lot there. So I think with a lot of these redundancies, that's also adding more stress and difficulties within the people that are still in those organizations, and they are having more pressure within that business. In terms of, if you have been made redundant, I would say getting clear on your own positioning is one piece of advice. Understanding where your strengths are. Don't try and please everybody. Be clear on where your skill set lies and lead with that. And yes, there are always going to be, particularly in this industry, this digital performance industry, we are constantly trying to optimize, and it's this always on, constantly evolving, constantly learning. There's a new update every second with a new tool. There's a lot of information for individuals to take in. So I think yes, there are always going to be elements of involving your own skill set, AI obviously being one of them that we've touched upon. But I think being clear on where you specialize, and that could be down to, channel performance. It could be type of industry sector. It could be, okay, do I thrive in a corporate enterprise? And those senior individuals tend to be quite clear on that. They tend to be quite self-aware and know where I'm going to thrive and where I can add value to a business.
How interesting. You're inspiring me now to a new question that is perhaps a derivative from this, but a bit more from the perspective of a talent sector. So you have said earlier that, you have an ear to listen to what type of reactions are coming across at the moment, what type of commentary you're hearing from the talent pool to say that, they may be concerned of what's happening around at the moment in the hiring market, and then how do they respond to it? My question through here is that you've just mentioned that it does sound that the senior talents are a lot more clear about their positioning and what they need to focus on. What do you think the younger talents, the more junior talents, can learn from the senior talents in order to better position themselves from the set-go so that they could get the attention of a recruiting agent or from the company's perspective?
That's a really good question. And I did read an article a few days ago around how our future CMOs, okay, someone with 3 years in, okay, and they're an aspiring CMO one day. If there is a heavy reliance on AI and the way that those decisions that have been made or are being passed over to AI, how does this junior talent learn from those seniors if actually that bottom layer, people would spend many years in campaigns and running on a more granular basis, but they would be watching those seniors and making those commercial decisions, leadership decisions, revenue decisions that are linked to revenue. Absolutely. And that's how they're learning, is by doing that. Whereas if some of those decisions are being taken away and being passed over to AI, I do wonder how those juniors are going to come up and come through. Again, I don't really work at a more junior level, so it's difficult to comment on how they're feeling about it. I think they're probably coming into their own because they're probably more AI literate than perhaps it's a sweeping statement, but maybe.
And to be fair, there doesn't seem to be a lot of choice at the moment if what we're hearing is there is this preference towards AI literacy in a sense that if you don't have that element, and of course this would disqualify you. Now, we've discussed earlier that not necessarily having the applications in place or whatnot might not necessarily be a disqualifier in total for a senior candidate because there are other aspects of it, the commerciality of their background and so forth. So there are other aspects that they've worked on. But with regards to the more junior talents, they kind of need to have from the set-go those elements of literacy. Yeah. And with that in mind, again, going back a little bit and untangling the piece around how to get the attention of a recruitment agent like yourself, someone who's been in the industry for however many decades now and knows, like, you can see the signals coming through. So from that perspective, do you feel that there are some more reliable tools out there? What I'm going to put forward to you is something that is a bit probably mass market and something that many would relate to, but LinkedIn, when it's showing some new features on it, so say, for instance, make this my preferred role. There is this new checkbox that they've made as an option for more premium users, not for every user I've seen. So if you do that, then it comes up as a summary of your entire CV when you apply for a role. And what does that do is it gets you furthermore attention because other candidates might not have that luxury of a feature to be able to do that summary, short 4 sentences or 3 sentences of their CV. It's like a short cover letter. So you don't need to read through the whole A4 cover letter, but you can do 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah. They've made that available to many, many, many other people. So it all just becomes the same noise, the same tone, the same feel. How do you differentiate yourself? I think on that, what I look for on a LinkedIn profile or whatever level, first of all, are you active on LinkedIn? Okay. Right. And look, not everybody spends, as much time as I do on LinkedIn, but, are you, who are you following? What groups are you part of? Are you commenting? Okay. Are you, because LinkedIn, it's a professional site. There's lots of information to bring on that to view and to digest. So that is one of the things that I look out for. I think more so on a more junior profile, but just to know that people are being present and are actually in the industry, and it's something that perhaps live and breathe. That's what it is. Very easy telltale sign. If someone hasn't touched LinkedIn for a while, again, I don't think it wouldn't be a disqualifier. But sometimes these signals can be strong enough for you to feel more positive about that potential call that you're going to have. And then the same goes for when you write in your CV. I always encourage people to, you have to do yourself justice. I want, from a psychology point of view, I want that CV to land on that hiring person's desk and for them to go, wow, can't wait to speak to Joe today, rather than, I'm a little unsure on how this reads, so you really have to take care. And again, because of the noise out there, you have to try your best to try and differentiate your skill set. And you do that by again, not trying to please everybody with everything, but just knowing where your strengths are and really shouting about that.
Great point. Thank you for sharing. Do you feel that currently the candidates are a little bit more? We've talked about the fact that they're becoming more savvier in utilizing the skills of automation benefit. But with regards to them outreaching to potential recruitment agent or somebody who is going to represent the roles of their dreams, like what are the recommended steps from your perspective that they should do, and the ones that they should absolutely avoid? Otherwise, again, I'm brainstorming as we speak, but what if they would send through a LinkedIn networking message to a potential recruitment agent that would be a complete no-go? Or what are the steps that they shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, always reach out to essentially, I don't think there should be a hard rule on who you should and who you shouldn't reach out to. I think it's just about doing your research and understanding, actually, am I positioning myself well for this business? Have I got something to add to this business? Is there something that's very relevant that they would that they would value from my skill set? So I think it's, you don't want to get into a habit of sort of spraying your CV out, and sort of just quick apply to every role. That is going to be disheartening because you are going to get a very low conversion in terms of response rates and interviews. But if you're quite considered about who you are approaching, then no, I think being proactive, I think you have to be in this market. I definitely think you need to be proactive. I've heard the phrase, it's a full-time job in itself, try and look for a job at the moment. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, absolutely. Yeah. And it's always been the case, but now probably even more so, right?
Yeah, emotional and physical time. It does take a toll, particularly like post-COVID. It was quite tough to hear, some of these people who have been out of work for such a long time. So I think we've been through that, that kind of, we're definitely out of that kind of where people were sat on the open market looking for roles for 6 to 12 months. I feel like we're past that now. But still there are lots of exceptionally strong talent out there on the market, and it's the lack of clarity around job roles is making it challenging for them to understand where I'm fitting right now in the market.
Fair enough. That's a good shout that you're making, Kate. Do you feel that as part of the experience that candidates are having and the businesses are having on the same time, do you feel there's something that the industry could improve more so to make this work for both ends, or we're currently just going with the flow?
Clarity. Clarity once again. Clarity on where they want their business to go in the next 2 to 5 years. And clarity on the kind of person that they need within that. And then clarity on the job description. That will make, I think, things a lot easier, generally speaking.
See, I had prepared this next question here as part of the clarity. There seems to be a very interesting point around the skill set and, trying to see where you see yourself fit that you've just mentioned earlier. I'd be very curious with regards to the overskilling here. Do you think there is this push towards that as a factor, or because again, we're touch basing on the panic, we're touch basing on people becoming a little bit unsettled about what's happening at the moment. Are we going to experience a little bit more of the overskilling phenomenon?
I think in the market that I work in, obviously being at digital performance, I think expanding on channel knowledge has always been something, even from when you started off, a year into your career, you then pushing for the next channel, and wanting that more broader holistic view on what these digital marketing channels are doing for you.
Yeah.
People at a senior level already have that, but it's expanding out of, again, this is quite specific to this industry, but it's expanding out of just digital. They want media, they want brand, they want commercial, they want retention lifecycle experience. The list just goes on and on and on. So I think if I look at what a CMO was responsible for today, or the expectations for CMO are today versus what they were, they're quite drastically different because of the other end of the spectrum. And I know we've touched upon that already, but the skills, the adding the more skills. I think people are trying to do that, particularly if they are out of work. They're looking at their own profiles and thinking, where are my skills gaps here? And there's always space for that. But I think it's, I think people, like you said, it's this panic of, why am I not getting this position? Why am I not getting a response rate? Do I need to add something else onto my CV? And that's a bit of a dangerous ground to get into, isn't it? So, start adding all these skills where you might have You might have done it while someone was on holiday once, and then they're putting themselves in a tricky situation as well. So, yeah, I think add skills with caution.
That's good that you mentioned that, and quite a fair play, it seems, for the candidates that are in the search of new roles versus those ones who are already employed. I'd be quite curious to see from your perspective. And of course, we're going to touch base more from the angle that you have full visibility of, which is the candidates that are applying for a new role. But do you feel that those that are in the role, are they trying to upskill themselves with the same level of speed that those ones that are searching for a new role? Because there might be a level of complacency involved. What I mean by that is what I'm hearing again as part of people who are watching the podcast, people who are writing me after that with their comments, is that there's a feeling towards, let's say, the actual managers, the hiring managers, that they might be in a role for however many years. They have not necessarily changed that role because, again, there's a reticency in the market towards, well, if something is there, why should we change it? It's like the pillar role in the company. You wouldn't easier just make a person redundant overnight, like a marketing director or something. But if the person has become very traditional in their decision-making and the roles and not necessarily happy to upskill themselves, and yet the requirements that he or she has towards the new candidates is full upskilling in place, like how do you see that balancing out?
Yes, I mean, that's a really good point, because again, this is something that I'm seeing a lot when candidates that I'm talking to, is that they'll go into a position and the job brief will read one way, and within 6 months, the brief has significantly changed. And then they're in a situation where they are trying to cope in a role that they are clearly not qualified for. And then they leave the business. And then the business is unsure again of what do we need then? Because they ask too much of that person, and then burnout happens, with these individuals. So, I think again, I feel like I'm repeating myself again with this clarity, but it's the business has to understand what they need from that individual and where the skills. Can this person upskill? Or do we need to add on a headcount? And obviously businesses are very aware, risk averse to adding new FTEs onto the balance sheet. And so that I think that's also driving these kind of expectations, is businesses are trying to cost cut and trying to get, compressing roles, 2-3 roles into one.
I think we have unpacked quite a few elements of the hiring market at the minute that is both challenging. It's both unusually fast evolving because of everything that's currently happening. But you've also been, I believe, quite transparent with regards to where some of the challenges could be untangled and how the candidates could be a lot more, could benefit a lot more from what's happening, but just being a little bit more focused, right? On both ends, really. It works both ways. And before I go into the more traditional part of the podcast, which is our Flash Q&A, which is a little bit more of a gamification that I absolutely love, and it's been always a success on the podcast because it's the last sort of flair that happens. But before we go there, do you think there's one particular question that, and I'm going to give you some time, no worries, but if you feel that, like, we've discussed it quite a bit, there's a lot to unpack for someone who will be watching and listening after. Is this something that you would either want to leave as a core message with the audience after, or something that you would want me to ask more just to wrap it all up?
So I believe the more information that we have now, the more volume, the more noise, I believe that trust is becoming a currency. I think that will be not just with regards to work, but just generally, I feel that we are in a bit of a time at the moment where we don't really know what to trust, even what we digest in terms of news, etc. So a little bit off piece, but I just feel that within my sector and what I'm trying to do as a consultant is that's what my clients are buying. Okay, they're not buying hundreds of CVs, okay, because there's an IR tool that can do that for you, okay? So it's trust, it's judgment, it's pattern recognition, and it's the value that I bring to that. So yeah, I think that would be my sort of final say, really, is that's what I'm trying to build is helping businesses with that decision fatigue and giving them trust and them feeling comfortable that they have somebody that understands the market, the nuances, and can cut through a lot of that noise.
Excellent. I'm very grateful for this, Kate. And now let's
you.
play. Are
Let's
you ready?
go. Yeah.
Excellent. Great stuff. And the actual questions that I've got prepared for you mean that we just want a very quick answer, right? Be it a word or a sentence, but really quick, like really intuitive, something that you just feel on the flow. Excellent. So the first one is, hiring today feels?
Noisy.
Thank you. It is. The biggest problem is in recruitment is?
Lack of clarity.
Thank you. That kind of wraps it up quite nicely, doesn't it? AI in hiring is?
Operationally needed, but should not be relied upon.
Thank you. Most CVs today are?
A bit rubbish.
Thank you. That's what I love about it. The intuitive answer. No problem. Next one. Strong candidates are?
Invaluable.
Thank you. Trust in hiring is built through, we just discussed trust.
Yeah, trust in hiring is built through consistency.
Thank you. The biggest hiring mistake is?
Going out to market before you know what you need.
A great brief is?
Defined.
Thank you. Overskilling is?
Not always necessary.
Thank you. Love that. It seems like this is a good wrap up of everything.
Yeah, very much so.
Right?
Yeah.
Burnout is?
Coming.
The most underrated trait in a candidate is?
Communication.
Thank you. The biggest red flag in hiring is?
Lies.
So it feels like it is another episode just on that. EasyApply has made hiring?
Cluttered.
Indeed. Most job descriptions are?
Basic.
Culture fit is?
Paramount.
Senior talent today is?
Rare.
And the future of recruitment is?
The future of recruitment is changing.
Kate, you've made it through. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for today. I really enjoyed it. And I think, like I said earlier, I think this episode is going to be full of great insights, great hands-on insights, not just, the type of elements that they need to just hear once and not do anything about it. I think it's good to be watched with a pen and paper as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for doing
Thanks,
this.
Nadia.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Cheers, hon.
Thanks.